Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. In the heart of the ancient city of Eldrith, nestled between the shadowed alleys and the mercantile bustle, there existed a market unlike any other, the Bazaar of Forgotten Whispers. This market did not sell the ordinary wares of silk, spices, or jewels. Instead, it traded in things far more elusive: memories, lost dreams, half-remembered songs, and names. Names of people, places, things that time had blurred and eyes had long ceased to notice. The inhabitants of Eldrith knew better than to linger too long in the bazaar, for it drew the curious and the desperate alike, those who sought what should have been left behind. On one cool evening, as the sun dipped below the spires, casting long shadows that reached like fingers over the cobblestones, a new stall appeared without warning. It was draped in threadbare black velvet embroidered with stitches of silver. The stall bore no sign save for a single word glowing softly in a pale blue light beneath the moonlight: threadnames. It was said that the stall was placed there by a woman, neither young nor old, her hair the hue of midnight, her eyes reflecting stars from a forgotten sky. She was known simply as Mélisse, the weaver of names. It was whispered among the marketplace patrons that Mélisse could weave names forgotten even by time itself, into threads, creating something both beautiful and terrifying, a form bound to power that should have remained forgotten. Some spoke of threads that carried curses, others strands that contained ancient knowledge, and some reckless souls even claimed she once wove a name so powerful it shifted the course of a kingdom's fate in a single night. The woman herself never spoke more than necessary. She watched every visitor with a steady gaze, offering a measured nod or an almost imperceptible smile as she worked at her loom made from bones of unknown creatures and strings spun from moonlight and shadow. She beckoned the curious toward her, inviting them to surrender a name that had slipped past the confines of memory and be intertwined into a thread name. Tonight, a man named Oren approached her stall. Oren was a scholar, a man of dusty tomes and endless questions. He had come because he sought the name of his ancestor lost to the void of forgotten history, a name erased not by accident but by malevolent design. When he laid his hand against the black velvet of her stall, Mélisse's eyes shimmered. "I tire of chasing shadows," Oren said quietly, his voice carried by the thin night air. "My family's legacy was stolen, swallowed by silence. Will you weave it back for me?" Mélisse's fingers moved deftly, pulling a single loose thread from her loom, thin yet radiant with an unearthly glow. The threads obey the nature of the name bound to them. Some names are echoes of light, others are knots of darkness. To breathe life into a forgotten name is to invite the past to walk among us once more. Are you prepared for what may come? Oren swallowed hard but nodded. "I must be." Without another word, Mélisse began weaving. Her fingers danced, pulling and knotting gleaming strands that shimmered with every hue of the forgotten past. As she worked, the shadows around her deepened, as if reality itself loosened at the edges. The air grew thick with the scent of old paper and rain, the quiet hum of lost voices weaving through the gathered air. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. No one could tell in the bazaar of forgotten whispers. When Mélisse finally stopped, she lifted a small spindle trapped in a delicate cage of spider silk threads. It was warm to the touch and thrummed with a secret pulse. "This is the thread name of Eldchar, your ancestor, once prince of the Western Isles," she said softly. "But beware. His name was buried not just by time but by oath and blood. To unweave the silence is to awaken the tides of old debts." Oren clutched the thread name tightly and thanked her, a knot of both hope and foreboding lodged in his heart. As he left her stall and wandered through the winding pathways of the city, Oren felt the thread pulse in his pocket and listened closely. Could he hear a faint whisper? The soft echo of a voice calling in the half-light between worlds? Among the twisted alleyways and forgotten places of Eldrith, the power of the thread name began to stir. It thrummed with life, tugging at Oren's mind and soul, awakening memories not his own. Scenes came unbidden. A vast ocean battered by storm, a throne of carved stone rising from the waves, a man with eyes like the storm itself. His ancestor Eldchar, prince who was betrayed and lost in waves of both water and treachery. As days turned into nights, Oren found himself changing. Shadows gathered beneath his eyes, his speech took on an echoing quality. When he closed his eyes, he saw visions of ancient battles, heard the clash of swords, and the cries of those who once knew his noble line. The thread name had sown him into a destiny that pulsed with the fury and gravitas of an age long buried. One evening, as the city was steeped in twilight mist, Oren returned to the bazaar to find Melis again. "You have awoken more than a name," she said calmly, as if she had been waiting for him. "The threads remember, but they also demand balance. Eldchar's grief and rage are woven deep. You must honor the oath that silenced him." "What must I do?" Oren asked, sensing the weight of the impending revelation. Melis offered a thin smile. "You must seek the mirror of ancients, buried beneath the granite spires east of the city. There lies the truth of Eldchar's betrayal and the power to mend or unravel the legacy. But beware. There are those who want the thread name buried forever." With a newfound purpose, Oren set out from the bazaar of forgotten whispers into the wild hills beyond Eldrith. His only guide was the thread name clutched in his hand, glowing faintly under the moon, and the riddle spoken by Melis. The path was treacherous, not just physically but spiritually. The fabric of reality here was thin, and the lingering power of forgotten names clung to the air like a dense fog. On the third night, Oren arrived at the granite spires. Monumental stones pierced the sky, surrounded by wild thickets and ancient glyphs. Here, the past whispered loudest. As he approached the base of the tallest monolith, the thread name pulsed with urgent energy. It seemed to reach out, weaving itself into the very stones, pulling him forward. Digging beneath loose rubble, Oren uncovered a small entrance cautiously hidden by creeping ivy. Inside, the air was cool and damp, heavy with centuries of stillness. Deeper within the caverns lay the Mirror of Ancients, a vast-looking glass with a frame of twisted silver and sapphires, cracked but shimmering with an inner light. When Oren looked into the mirror, images formed in its depths. Eldchar's final moments, a betrayal woven by whispers of greed within the court, the oath of silence imposed by magic so wicked it erased his very name from all but secret memory. The mirror also showed a possible future, one where the name could be restored, justice served, and the old wounds healed. But the reflection changed suddenly. A shadowy figure stood behind him, a rival scholar named Valor, hunger burning in his eyes. Valor too had been tracing forgotten names to wield their power and sought to steal the thread name for himself, hoping to unlock untold secrets and dominant magic. Oren turned swiftly, clutching the spindle tightly. Threads of power burst from his hand, shimmering strands of Eldchar's spirit intertwining with his own will. The struggle was fierce. Threads wrapped, tightened, and unraveled in a deadly dance of wills. The cavern echoed with shattered magical bonds and whispered curses. With a final desperate pull, Oren wove the thread name into a binding spell. Valor was caught in a snare of silver and shadow, his power diminished, the greed in his eyes replaced with fear. "The names of the lost are not toys for the reckless," Oren said, voice steady and resolute. Having defended the legacy, Oren faced the mirror once more. With steady hands, he pressed the spindle against its surface. The cracks shimmered and healed, reflecting the restored name, Eldchar, shining anew, blazing with honor and sacrifice. Returning to Eldrith, the changes were immediate. Forgotten streets lit with subtle warmth, ghostly voices softened into songs, and a newfound reverence settled upon the city. The thread name woven by Melis's hand had tied Orin not just to his ancestor but to the entire tapestry of history, fragile, vibrant, and alive. Orin sought the Weaver of Names again, but her stall had vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. No sign remained but the faint scent of velvet and moonlight, and a single silver thread caught on a cobblestone, glowing softly. Melis's voice echoed faintly in his mind as he walked away. Some names choose when and how they are remembered. To weave them is to share the burden of their story. Orin understood now. The power of names, forgotten, buried, or lost, was a delicate gift, one that must be handled with reverence and care. And though the Weaver of Names had vanished into the mist, her purpose lingered, a reminder that even in silence, the past's voice never truly fades. For more stories, like and subscribe.